October 2025. Federal marshals storm in and arrest one of YouTube's biggest diesel influencers. Heavy D from Diesel Brothers, the guy with 4.5 million subscribers who built an empire customizing trucks, is thrown into solitary confinement. The headlines scream he refused to pay over $850,000 in fines. But 3 days later, something wild happens. A judge orders his immediate release right there in the courtroom. And what Heavy D revealed after walking out? It's not what anyone expected. This isn't just about money or trucks. According to him, it's about exposing a system that's been twisted for profit. Here's what really went down. Tuesday morning, October 7, 2025. Dave Sparks, better known as Heavy D, wasn't expecting federal marshals to show up, but they did. And within hours, the Diesel Brothers star found himself booked into Salt Lake County Jail on contempt charges. The reason? An unpaid debt of $843,602 stemming from a lawsuit that had been dragging on for years. For someone who'd built a massive following by turning rusty trucks into diesel-powered beasts, this was a brutal fall from grace. The news hit social media like a freight train. Fans couldn't believe it. Here was a guy who'd appeared on Discovery Channel, worked with Chuck Norris, owned a private island, and held world records with monster trucks. His YouTube channel pulled in hundreds of millions of views. His Instagram had nearly 4 million followers. He'd become the face of diesel culture in America, and now he was behind bars. But what really caught people off guard wasn't just the arrest, it was the amount. Over $850,000. For a reality TV star with that kind of platform, it seemed insane that he wouldn't just pay up and move on. Some fans immediately jumped to his defense, claiming government overreach. Others wondered if there was more to the story. The headlines painted him as a guy dodging responsibility. But Heavy D saw it differently, and he wasn't about to stay quiet. What he'd reveal after his release would flip the entire narrative on its head. Rewind to 2017. That's when everything began. A group called Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment decided they'd had enough of the Diesel Brothers. They filed a federal lawsuit under the Clean Air Act, accusing Heavy D and his crew of illegally removing emissions control equipment from diesel trucks. The practice, often called rolling coal, lets trucks spew thick black smoke and pollutants. The physicians group claimed these modified trucks pumped out 30 times more pollution than stock vehicles. Their lawsuit, a jaw-dropping $114 million. Now here's the part most people missed. This wasn't the EPA coming after them. It wasn't the Department of Justice. It was a private group of doctors using citizen enforcement provisions in the Clean Air Act. They argued that Heavy D was turning trucks into disease-generating machines that harmed public health. The Diesel Brothers, on the other hand, maintained they were building vehicles for off-road use, which they believed was legal. Heavy D even claimed he was working with the EPA to ensure compliance, but the court didn't buy it. In 2020, a federal judge ruled against the Diesel Brothers. The evidence was clear. They'd violated the Clean Air Act hundreds of times, modifying trucks that ended up on public roads. The original $114 million demand got reduced, but the penalties were still massive. By 2021, Heavy D and his partners owed nearly $850, and that's when things got complicated. Because Heavy D wasn't just refusing to pay fines, he was refusing to pay attorney fees to a private group. After the 2021 ruling, Heavy D had a choice: pay up and move on, or dig in his heels. He chose the latter. For over 3 years, he didn't pay a single dollar to the Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment. Not 1 cent of that $843,620. The court wasn't pleased. In June 2024, a judge found Heavy D and his co-defendants in contempt for failing to comply with the payment order. But Heavy D still didn't budge. Then things escalated. The court ordered Heavy D to produce detailed financial documents, business operating agreements, photos of every vehicle, trailer, motorcycle, watercraft, and aircraft he had any interest in. The judge wanted full transparency on his assets. Heavy D was supposed to hand everything over. He didn't. Instead, in August 2025, he got caught transferring property, including a Tesla and a Ram truck, despite explicit court orders not to move assets. That earned him a second contempt charge. By October, the court had seen enough. Judge Shelby issued a bench warrant for Heavy D's arrest. Federal marshals were given the green light to bring him in. And on October 7th, they did exactly that. Heavy D found himself in solitary confinement at the Salt Lake County Jail, facing serious consequences for defying court orders. To outsiders, it looked like a stubborn millionaire refusing to face reality. But Heavy D saw himself as something else entirely. A guy taking a stand against what he believed was a corrupt system. and he was about to make his case in dramatic fashion. 3 days in solitary. That's what Heavy D endured at the Salt Lake County Jail. For someone used to wide open spaces, massive trucks, and the freedom of the Utah desert, being locked in a cell alone had to feel like torture. But Heavy D wasn't just sitting there feeling sorry for himself. He was preparing, building his defense, getting ready to expose what he claimed was the real story behind his arrest. On October 10, 2025, Heavy D appeared before the court for his contempt hearing. This was supposed to be the moment where the judge laid down the law and made him pay. But something unexpected happened. His lawyer, Cole Cannon, came armed with evidence, 40 slides worth, according to Heavy D's later statements, documents, proof, claims that the Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment's lawyers had been misleading the court for years. During a break in the proceedings, something shifted. The two sides met privately. They reached a stipulation. Heavy D would provide certain financial disclosures to the plaintiffs within 10 days, and in exchange, the judge ordered his immediate release. Just like that, Heavy D walked out of federal custody. No more jail time. No lengthy legal battle in that moment. He was free. But this wasn't a victory in the traditional sense. The underlying debt wasn't resolved. The legal war wasn't over. What happened in that courtroom was more like a temporary ceasefire. Heavy D had bought himself time, and he was about to use every second of it to tell his side of the story to millions of followers. Hours after his release, Heavy D did what any modern influencer would do. He went straight to Instagram. The video he posted wasn't some casual update. It was a full-blown counteroffensive. He looked directly into the camera and told his millions of followers to ignore the headlines. This wasn't about him dodging payments. This was about something much bigger. This isn't a story about avoiding payment, Heavy D declared. This is a story about refusing to be exploited and exposing a system that's been abused for far too long. He called out the environmental lawyers by name, particularly targeting a Laramie, Wyoming attorney named Reed Zars. Heavy D claimed these lawyers had turned environmental laws into personal profit machines, chasing what he called blank checks of attorney fees. His lawyer, Cole Cannon, backed him up with his own Instagram video. Cannon emphasized that Heavy D wasn't arrested for any crime. This was purely a civil matter, a paperwork dispute that spiraled into jail time. He argued that the entire case had been blown out of proportion by lawyers more interested in collecting massive fees than protecting the environment. Heavy D promised a longer, more detailed YouTube video was coming, one with documentation, evidence, the full story of how he believed the system had been weaponized against him. He claimed that over 20 other people and companies in Utah had been targeted the same way over the past decade. According to Heavy D, he'd just become the poster boy for fighting back, and he felt vindicated. The question was whether anyone would believe him. While Heavy D celebrated his release and claimed victory, the Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment had their own perspective, and it didn't exactly match his narrative. According to the group, this was never about legal exploitation or attorney fees. It was about public health, air quality, protecting people from harmful pollutants. Dr. Howie Garber, a board member of the group, made their position clear. Pollution controls on diesel vehicles are mandated by law, he stated. These pollution controls are also necessary to prevent the many acute and chronic diseases that are caused and exacerbated by air pollution. Unfortunately, diesel brothers are turning these trucks into disease-generating machines. The group pointed to research showing that trucks with removed emissions equipment produce over 3,000% more pollution. That's more than 30 times the amount of a stock diesel truck. But here's what made Heavy D an especially controversial target. Sure, his company might have only built around 20 trucks, but his influence? Absolutely massive. With 4.5 million YouTube subscribers, 3.8 million Instagram followers, and a mainstream Discovery Channel show that ran for years, Heavy D had effectively promoted diesel modifications to millions of people. His videos showcased rolling coal, extreme builds, and the rebel attitude of the diesel community. It's impossible to measure how many people were inspired to modify their own trucks after watching his content. And Heavy D wasn't alone in facing consequences. Other diesel influencers had been hit too. Tony Lake, a Wyoming mechanic, served over a year in federal prison for similar violations. He paid over $50,000 in fines. Another guy, Corey Willis, paid a staggering $3.1 million. As of now, the legal saga isn't over. Not by a long shot. Heavy D walked out of jail, but he didn't walk away from the debt. The stipulation that secured his release required him to provide financial disclosures within 10 days. Whether he's done that, and what those disclosures revealed, hasn't been made public. The core question remains unanswered. Will Heavy D eventually pay the $843,602, or will this battle drag on even longer? The Diesel Brothers show officially ended back in 20. Heavy D and his crew claimed it was their decision, saying they wanted to return to their roots with self-produced YouTube content where they'd have more creative control. But the timing was suspicious. With mounting legal pressure and the shadow of this lawsuit hanging over everything, it's hard not to wonder if the legal troubles played a bigger role than they let on. Despite the negative publicity, Heavy D's online presence has only grown. His YouTube channel continues to pull massive numbers. His Instagram stays active with millions of engaged followers. The Diesel community, by and large, has rallied behind him. Many see him as a symbol of resistance against what they view as government overreach and environmental extremism. Others see him as someone who broke the law repeatedly, made millions promoting illegal modifications, and then tried to paint himself as a victim when consequences finally caught up. The bigger question is what this means for the entire diesel modification industry. If Heavy D loses this fight, it could set a precedent that emboldens more lawsuits. If he wins, it might energize others to push back. Heavy D calls it vindication. The Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment call it accountability. The truth? Probably somewhere in between. What's undeniable is that Heavy D turned diesel trucks into entertainment, built a massive following, and found himself at the center of a legal firestorm that landed him in jail. His claims about lawyers exploiting environmental laws might resonate with some, but the facts remain: he violated the Clean Air Act hundreds of times, owed nearly $1 million, and defied court orders for years. Whether he's a rebel exposing corruption or just avoiding consequences, one thing's clear: this fight is far from over.